I dare to challenge the self-determination theory and include generosity as a basic human need.
Challenge accepted. That is Luz Olid of Evolving Education. I will put a link to her original 8-minute video in the description below. Here's more from Luz.
So the self-determination theory does not explicitly include generosity as a basic human need, but it's also a theory that originates in the Western context, and it might offer a biased view focused on the individualistic approach typical of Western theories. It's possible that the self-determination theory, being framed within the Western paradigm, has not considered generosity as a basic human need due to the cultural differences in the understanding of well-being and personal fulfillment. Generosity, understood as the act of giving and sharing selflessly with others, can enrich our lives by strengthening our relationships, fostering gratitude, and promoting a sense of connection and community. Additionally, generosity can help individuals to feel that they are having a positive impact in the world, which can be an important source of satisfaction and purpose in life.
Thanks to Luz for offering the challenge. Turns out that self-determination theory is not your typical Western theory. There has already been research into beneficence and meaningfulness as candidate needs. The results of that research show that the satisfaction of the need for beneficence does add to well-being, exactly as she observed. However, that's not enough to join the rarefied list of primary needs. There are actually 9 criteria that a need would have to meet in order to earn the title of primary. Beneficence had met many of those criteria, but there was one key criteria that took a while before the research on it could be done. That criteria is that when a primary need is thwarted, it must also have a negative effect on well-being. The reason it took a while to do the research is because, as you might imagine, figuring out how to thwart the need for beneficence in an ethical manner was pretty tricky. Turns out that when the need for beneficence is thwarted, there is no effect on well-being. So, while it does boost well-being, it is not missed when it is thwarted. This brings us to a deeper understanding of the overall picture of human needs that SDT has helped to reveal. Needs can be primary, secondary, particular, or derivative. Primary needs are the main causes of well-being. Physiological needs for air, water, food, and shelter are primary. They are physiological because if they are thwarted long enough, you die. An example of a physiological need that is derivative is poop. I live on a llama ranch. Sadly, a few years ago, we had a newborn cria that did not have an anus. He had a hole for input, but no hole for the output. We noticed immediately that it was not doing well, and we did everything we could to help it. Unfortunately, it took a veterinarian to work out the real problem because verifying the presence of an anus was not on any of our mental checklists. While failing to poop will kill you, it is derived from the need for food. Psychological needs don't kill you when they are thwarted. When psychological needs are thwarted, you get more anxiety, depression, and other forms of psychological distress. You might die from the dysfunctions that follow from the psychological distress, but the thwarting of the psychological needs does not kill you directly. The most well-known psychological need is for sleep. Self-determination theory proved that the needs for relatedness, autonomy, and competence are also primary. The need for beneficence is a secondary need, nice to have but not missed when it is thwarted. Luz also used the word meaningfulness in her challenge. It turns out to be a derivative need. When they got around to researching how much each of the 5 needs for relatedness, autonomy, competence, beneficence, and meaningfulness contribute to the boosting of well-being, they started by accounting for those first 4 already established needs. After those 4 needs were taken into account, there was nothing left over. That means that meaningfulness is a derivative need. It is a mix of the other needs that does not in itself make any independent contribution to well-being. I suspect that most of the needs talked about in everyday non-technical language are derivative of primary, secondary, and particular needs. Speaking of particular needs, they arise out of the uniqueness of individual differences, circumstances, or cultural context. If I walk out into the street and get hit by a car and end up on life support in a hospital, that circumstance has created needs that are uniquely mine due to my constellation of injuries. An example of how needs are affected by cultural context is food. I live in a culture in which bugs are not regarded as food. Imagine if someone from my culture was lost in a remote wilderness in a foreign land surrounded by an abundance of bugs that would be considered edible by the local population. But my cultural compatriot could starve to death because here he does not perceive the bugs as food. Primary and secondary needs are by definition universal to all humans. They enhance well-being no matter what a person's age. Particular needs also enhance or maintain well-being, but they are not universal. Thanks to Luz for the challenge. Her intuition was correct, but SDT is not a typical Western theory. She was not the first person to contemplate the possibility they might have a Western bias. Specifically, SDT is clear that our needs are socially embedded. Autonomy is not about individuality. Sometimes the need for autonomy can be satisfied by obedience to a trusted authority. Despite having the word self in the title, SDT assumes that individuals are embedded in multiple layers of a holistic reality. I have 2 pages on my website about how holism informs education. Links in the description. The SDT community responds to valid criticism. It has repeatedly updated its claims or completed more research to address critics' concerns. But it is helpful when critics demonstrate understanding of the theory, as Luz did in her video. Another page on my site criticizes a critic who seems to have been confused about what claims SDT has made and been unaware of how prior criticisms have already been addressed. Link below. SDT is the most thoroughly supported model of psychological needs, motivation, and engagement in the world today. It is not the only model in each of those areas, and many competing models are probably making important contributions. However, SDT should be regarded as exceptional because it has solid evidence to support fundamental causal claims about psychological well-being. With all the attention on the compromises to children's well-being that is being generated by best-selling books like The Anxious Generation, we should be celebrating the clear causal model that SDT provides. I have a page about The Anxious Generation too, link in the description. This puts SDT in a special position as a science. As a famous biologist once said of Darwin's theory, nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. Consider the possibility that education is just a practical application of psychology and that nothing in psychology makes sense except in the light of self-determination theory. Thanks for watching.